Good afternoon and welcome to a beautiful, spectacular late summer day. It is September. You tell me, I don't remember again as usual. It's the first week of September, and even though it has been cooler the last week, it's actually quite spectacular right now. We've got 68 degrees. Unfortunately, we got pretty high winds. Hoping you can hear this engine run today. Today on the stand, I've got an engine that, believe it or not, I have not run this version of an OS FS-120 Surpass E version in over 7 years. Now I've had one, and I just traded it for the 120 Surpass 3 pumped version, but then this one just happened across my table again also. So this is actually going to be what I call a box to the bench run. And that is where I get an engine and I assess whether it looks like it's in a shape good enough to just run right out of the box. And that's exactly what this one is. Now this engine came to me and it was not locked up, but it was really notchy feeling. But externally it looked like it had very, very low run time. So I basically just put a little bit of oil in the breather and I set the engine upside down in my vise and just put oil in the breather here and just rotated the crankshaft over to get the timing gears, the front bearing, and then of course some of that oil went up in here to get the rockers going, and it feels smooth as silk right now. So the carb was stuck. I got that freed up. So basically the only thing I've done with this thing is I checked the valve lash, I oiled it to get it freed up the carb, and I've preset the high-speed needle to 2 turns out from fully closed. I didn't look at the valves, I changed the plug, but I didn't set the low speed at all. I didn't mess with the low speed adjustment, and hopefully I don't need to because it's way over here on this side and it would be a little tough for me to try to get to that. So we're going to do a run with this engine basically as it is. I've got an APC 15.6 prop here. I've got a nice brightly glowing Fox Miracle plug, and then I've got some 7% fuel for this box of the bench run for this OS FS-120 Surpass E engine. Okay, I've got it set to full throttle now. Let's see how it takes a prime. Looks like it's pulling fuel quite nicely. Yes, it pulled fuel quite nicely. Now the choke mechanism stuck a little bit, but now I'm going to close this throttle and just open it about a 1/4 turn and make sure that it doesn't just fire up right away here. I'm going to use an electric starter. So here we go. Okay, so maybe the throttle stop screw isn't set right where it needs to be. Or maybe that low speed needle is really recessed. Because that is acting just like that Sato 200 Ti did, where it didn't want to run at low speed at all. So I'm just going to wind this low speed out some, because I don't think it looks like it's pretty deep in there. And I might do a little bit of tweak on this. Okay, let's just do those quick little tweaks and see what happens now. Interesting. I did have it set at 2 turns out. Let's see. Yeah. 1, 2. I'll go 2.5 turns. fire this up again. I'm trying to remember what the low speed was acting like. Let me... Oh, well, that's one thing that came off. That might be a contributing factor there. I don't like it when that's covering up my glow plug like that. So the tank pressure line came disconnected. So before I make any changes, let's fire it up again here, because I didn't see exactly when that happened. Or if I just never had it hooked up to begin with, I don't know. So we're also listening to assess these bearings if we can hear that, if I can get a good idle going. So I see that I've got a bearer loosening up here for some reason. So I don't know, this sounds like it's got a classic case of maybe crud in the carb. Like I said, this is a box to the bench run, and I didn't preliminarily set the carb at all. I'm trying to listen to see if the bearings sound like they're... Let me see where I'm at here with the needle valve. 1, 2, so it's at 2. And I didn't take the head off or anything, so I don't know. I mean, it's got a little carbon residue on here, so I mean, it's got some runtime on it, so I just have to go with the fact that it's probably been broken in. But let's fire it up again here and see. I think maybe I'll lean that low speed just a little bit. That carb may just need some loving care here. Okay, so I think I've got the low speed tuned in fairly decent right now. I think the one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to replace this plug. It's a Fox Miracle plug. It was a used plug. Before I say that the carb needs to be pulled apart and cleaned out, I'm going to replace the plug here real quick and see if that changes the behavior at all of this engine. Right now it's running fairly decent. Okay, so I've got a much newer OSF glow plug installed in here, and we'll see if that changes the behavior of this engine at all. Okay, so that did seem to transform the top end for sure. I'm still a little leery about what's going on with the low speed. Maybe I just closed that. Maybe I'm expecting too low of an idle. Maybe I should just put this back to so it was around 3,000 RPM. Okay, so there you go. There's a great example of how a plug can change the way an engine runs. Now, maybe it had to do with the fact that it was just getting the gunk worked out of the engine. Maybe it had to do with the plug. Maybe the Fox Miracle plug that I put in there was either not as good as I hoped, or just not a good match for this engine. I mean, it is an OS engine. I put an OSF plug in there. There was a relatively new plug, and it was tremendously different, at least on the high speed. Low speed still has a little weirdness happening there, so I'll just probably end up pulling this car, running it through the ultrasonic cleaner, checking it out at all. But I mean, for the most part, this thing was running really well, and for a box to the bench run, I think it was rather successful. Now, I am seeing here, I didn't have a tube attached to the crankcase vent, but I can see a lot of really dirty looking stuff coming out of it. So this run did at least serve the purpose of cleaning the interior out quite a bit. And I wanted to get the idle as low as possible so I could hear better the bearings, because that's really where you can hear the bearings. I mean, I have no history of this engine whatsoever. I got it from eBay. The person that was selling it said it was his grandfather's engine. So, I mean, this engine dates back to probably 1988, so who knows how old this engine really is. It looks fairly low runtime, honestly. There was a little bit of carbon on the exhaust, but heck, this thing may not, because of how dry it felt, this thing may not have been run for 25 years. So, obviously, the bearings would probably be nice to have them replaced, depending on what I'm going to do with this engine. I mean, if I'm not going to do anything else with it other than this, why go through the effort in replacing the bearings? I don't know. So anyway, that's your box to the bench run. First run in over 7 years for me of a standard OS FS-120 Surpass E version engine. Hope you enjoyed watching.